up Kent to be the master of ceremonies for Opie's broken wand.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Kent.
John didn't mention that Opie was an honorary life member for two reasons. One, the many things he had done for the club, and two, the fact that in his later years he got quite ill and wasn't able to come to meetings. And in between those two times, he got pissed off at us all and didn't come to meetings. So, it's interesting. A little before Thanksgiving, I got an email. Short email, November 27th, 2024, 2:54 p.m. Kent, I just saw notice that Opie died last night. His daughter posted it on Facebook. Sue. That's Sue Caldwell behind the camera right now. Sent from my iPhone. So it's a brave new world. This is the way that we hear that one of our best friends has died. It's on social media. It's not bad. I might not know yet if it weren't for that. And yet, it just seems strange. I mentioned Sue and I've been friends for 30 years, which sounds like a long time until I think about the fact that I was friends with Opie for almost 60 years. 1965, I was a young second lieutenant, newly married to Margot, stationed in Worms, Germany for the Army. Opie Houston was a seasoned staff sergeant for the Air Force, also in Germany. And the two of us were about as different as night and day. We had different interests, different ways of dealing with the world. But our mutual love of magic brought us together and kept us together. This is an article in the Linking Ring about magicians in uniform. And it was written by Harvey R. Turner, who is the main glue behind the Armed Forces Magicians Association. Opie was very active. He was the first secretary, the second president of the Armed Forces Magicians Association. Wow. And so he immediately got me involved in that as well. And Harvey Turner was always in one place, not constantly being sent off to another thing. He had a home in Florida. And he wrote in the Linking Ring, Opie has more ideas by accident than most magicians have on purpose. That was April 1967 in the Linking Ring. And by then, Opie and I were already friends. As a matter of fact, Opie and I went to the Weltkongress der Magie, the World Congress of Magicians in Baden-Baden, Germany in 1967. I was the only American military performing in the contests, and Opie was there simply to be there, but of course we hung out a lot. The three of us, Margot, myself, and Opie. They didn't call it FISM. FISM was the name of the organization that ran it. They called it the World Congress of Magicians, but it was what we now call FISM. And so I have the honor of having lost in a performance at FISM. How many of you have ever lost at a performance in FISM? See? It's an important distinction. And although I didn't win any awards, I did get a 2-page spread with photos in the Stars and Stripes newspaper for the military. So that was kind of cool. It says that he had more ideas by accident than most magicians do, and those ideas were quickly put into a book. This is Magical Ramblings of an Idle Mind by Opie Houston, October 1965, just about the time Margot and I were getting to Germany, shortly after we were married. And on the bottom, this is the cover, on the bottom it says, warning, this book cannot be sold even secondhand for less than $1.50. Or more than $1 million. Certain items are copyrighted by the Hadegram magazine and are reprinted with permission. The Hadegram magazine, of course, was Mickey Hayes from Alberta, Canada. And particularly unusual methods and effects are sometimes called Hades effects in honor of Mickey Hades. He died not that long ago, actually, but there are 35 different items in here. Three sections. One section, let's see, especially for kids. One section novel effects and one section gambling lecture. The interesting thing about that is that the first section is called section 1. The second section is called section 2, and the third section is called section 4.
Way to go, Opie.
If you knew Opie, this probably doesn't even surprise you. And if you didn't, you're beginning to get an idea. This particular copy I bought from him. It had come out just, maybe a couple years before we met. And so it's personally autographed. He autographed it on 7 July 1967. Best of all good things in your magic endeavors.
How much did you pay?
Buck and a half?
$1.50.
It's actually a good question. I don't think he gifted it to me. But it's interesting.
Knowing Opie.
The book really does have 35 interesting things in it. And the interesting thing is how it came to be. How does this particular Air Force sergeant get a book published by Abbott's of all places? Well, the Air Force and the Army send you around all over the world. You get to lots of interesting places. And he got to Colon, Michigan. This is the story, the way Opie told me. He got to Colon, Michigan. He talked to Percy Abbott. He said, I've got all these ideas. I was thinking maybe you could publish a book. And apparently, Percy Abbott said, oh yeah, sure, we can do that. He says, but I'm not going to pay you. So just pick out anything you want from the showroom. And Opie said, I'm an Air Force sergeant. I don't have any place to put stuff. So take some coins, take some cards, take a few books. He couldn't take a lot of the big props and so on. But that's how that came to be. This is an ad for the book from the new Tops. When I was a teenage magician, I loved Tops magazine. It was one of my favorite magazines. It was just fun to read. And it was put out by Abbott's. And the new Tops was their rework. There's a magazine today. Genie the Conjurer's magazine is just having a complete new rework with the new owner. And that's what, I don't know that it was the new owner so much, but that's when Tops became the new Tops. And of course it was their book, so they're advertising it in their magazine. This is a 1992 issue of New Tops magazine. And in here, ideas from Opie Houston. 10 full pages of this magazine are ideas by Opie Houston. Now, this is actually the January issue, and his was in the September issue. I have things to tell you about this. First of all, I subscribed to Tops and New Tops, except for occasionally when my military duty made it just impossible to really subscribe to magic magazines. And so when I found out that this was the 1992 one, I thought, great! And I went and I climbed up in the ladder and I went to my files that have the Tops magazines, that's not it, the New Tops magazines, and I stopped in 1991. I don't have 1992. I've got 91, 96, 93. The ad was in, does it say, December 1965. I subscribed, so I look. I've got 1964, 63, 62, 61, 63. I don't have 65! So Joe Lyons did some research for me and sent me this. But I said, I'm going to public storage to check things out that we're going to be assembling for the auction from the various estates. And I know that there's these files, it's stacks and stacks of magic magazines. And Peter, who helps me manage this stuff, tells me every time I see him, we've got to throw away the magic magazines. Nobody's buying magic magazines. Nobody cares. We have like 17 copies of the same magazine. You're right, Peter. When you get this, you can throw them all away, but when I own it, I can't throw away a Magic magazine.
There you go.
But there's a box that's marked Tops and New Tops. And I go in, and it's got the old Tops magazines, the same ones I have in my library. And it's got New Tops, and it's got 1992 tied up with string. And I pick it up, and here's the January, here's the February, here's the March one, here's the April one, here's the May one, here's the June, here's July, here's August, here's October, here's November, here's December. It was a complete file in mint condition, except for September. The September one being the one with 10 pages that I got from Joe Lyons that he sent me by email.
Opie got it.
Why would you think that someone would have a complete file of just that year with 11 magazines and not that one?
Was this when Opie was mad at you?
I don't have any of Opie's estate other than what I bought. No, my best guess, Ramon Galindo.
Gave it to Opie.
Ramon Galindo had all these magazines, which are now in my storage room, and he knew Opie. They were friends. And so when Opie had this 10-page article, he probably pulled that magazine out. And it's probably somewhere. But yeah, Opie. This is a quote from Lines from Lawton. Okay, actually this is from an Ireland book that did a quote from Lines of Lawton, but the quote nevertheless originated in Lines from Lawton, October 1954. Now, before I read it to you, I subscribed to Lines from Lawton when I was a teenager. See these? I kept them in good condition.
Yeah.
Great.
I've had these
I
longer
read
than
them.
I've been married, and I've been married 60 years. Yeah, that's just, okay. So, Joe sends me this quote. Joe's a great researcher, and it's October 1954. Can you guess when my subscription started?
November.
1955. I don't have any lines from Lawton from 1954. And I knew Don Lawton. Baton Rouge Magic Club had a day with Don Lawton. It was my first one-day mini convention before I came to Austin and had the Scott Magic Company one-day mini conventions. And the first time I ever went to the Magic Castle, and I said, "Open sesame," and the bookcase moves, and it's Don Lawton. Kent, Don, what? But I don't have the one with Opie's quote. Opie's quote. The other night, when trying to go to sleep, I thought of a super stupendous brainstorm with the cigarette production gimmick. Now, you know what I'm talking about? The little metal gimmick that fits around your finger, and it has a point, and you stick the cigarette into the point, and so you show your hand empty and pull out the cigarette. Show your hand empty, pull out the cigarette, and you toss it into a hat. Okay. Just in case you didn't know what the cigarette gimmick is. I do most of my shows for kids, and I don't think they care too much about seeing a hat full of cigarettes. So I figured, why not use Tootsie Rolls? After producing a hatful, toss them out to the kiddies in the audience. Jim Wallace of Webster Groves and I tested the management trick, and it works fine. Signed, Opie Houston, Brentwood, Missouri. Everywhere you look. Adagram, linking ring, lines from Lawton, various books. He's got tricks in lots of books. Really amazing. But where Opie and I first connected was the Armed Forces Magicians Association, AFMA. This is a copy from July 1969. By then I was writing a column for the magazine. I say magazine, they're mimeographed. That's the way most of the magazines other than Genie and Linking Ring were. The International Jugglers Association was mimeographed. Pips from the Magical Youth International was mimeographed. And the Armed Forces Magicians Association newsletter was mimeographed. By the way, I may be the only human in the world that has a complete copy of the Armed Forces Magicians Association mimeograph newsletters.
Wow.
Because Opie was one of the few people in the world that had a complete copy. And he and his first wife had an argument and she threw out all of his magic-y stuff. So he told me he didn't have any copies left. I think I made, like Xerox copies for him. But all of these are now in library.com. That's library with a Y. And the guy who does library with a Y really cares about preserving this stuff and making it available. So it is still available. And by then, in 1969, I was writing a column I called Wartime Wizardry. Because by then I'd already been to Vietnam, I'd been to Germany, anyway. So this is just a quote from my column. Still another use of magic by military personnel is demonstrated by Opie Houston, who was in frequent demand for the local orphans while he was stationed in Germany. I knew that. These are often given free, but the reward is something more than money could possibly provide. And so that's me writing about Opie, and Opie wrote about me, and it was all good. And then I remembered one reason I loved Topps magazine. They had these curmudgeonly writers like Senator Crandall, and Duke Stern. And these writers would write a monthly column, and they would write about each other. And they would say crazy, nasty things about each other, which was all in good fun, of course. But it was just, they were so much fun to read. And I thought, Opie and I could do that in Eddie's magazine. And so, in February 1970, and this says Notes for Opie by Captain Kent C.R. Cummins. Opie wrote a column called Notes by Opie. So these are notes for Opie. You suggested that we drop the cards. In one of his notes, he said, if you go to any toy store, you can find this little box of kids' magic cards. And you suggested that we drop the cards except for the applause card in the nearest trash can. This is the applause card. Why do I happen to have one of these? You don't know me if you don't understand. Okay. Probably because you couldn't figure out the instructions. Now wait a minute. I'm writing this about Opie. Okay. You suggested that you drop the cards except for the applause card in the trash can, probably because you couldn't figure out the instructions. Anyway, you said that you carry the applause card in your pocket, and you probably do. However, you also said that when you pull out the card, it never fails to get a huge baloney. On 6 July 1967, at the World Congress of Magicians in Baden-Baden, Germany, you pulled it out and nobody laughed. I think I'm a better writer today than I was in 1970. I hope, at least. I wonder if I read this that many years from now. Anyway, Opie, because he was on the staff of the magazine, got to read the stuff before it was published. So therefore, his answers to my comments are in the same issue. This one. Opie says, the applause card worked when I was trying to get the audience to applaud your act. Remember, Kent? The 3 people in the back who applauded? Editor's note. Kent Cummins and Opie Houston are actually good friends, having served together in Europe. It's true. We actually were for many, many years. And of course, we stayed in touch with all the different places that we were, and we were all in lots of different places. And then in 1976, I stopped being on active duty in the Army. I just made Major. Major is one of the worst ranks in the entire Army. I mean, okay, second lieutenant's pretty bad, but you grow out of that pretty quickly. Captain is good. You're in charge of companies. And colonel is good. You're in charge of battalions and things. Major is just somebody that... So I got out. Okay, that's not why I got out. I got out because we were running a chain of sandwich shops, and my partner had opened one in Westgate Mall, and it was losing $1,000 a month. And he said, if you want to come and run sandwich shops, you better get out now. And because Vietnam was over in 1976, the Army was trying to get rid of its captains and majors that they had promoted so quickly and easily. And so that's why I got out. And then we sold the sandwich shops in 1986, 10 years later, and that's when I became a full-time magician and got very active with local magic clubs. And I remember one time Opie showed up at a SAM meeting. Kent, what are you doing here? I live here. Well, I live here now. We didn't know that we were destined to be buddies again until each of us wound up back active with the magic clubs in Austin. And Opie was active with both clubs, but he particularly was active with Sam Assembly 206, and that's why we're having the Broken Wand ceremony here. I think most of you know the basic idea of a Broken Wand ceremony, which is you take the magic wand in honor of a departed compeer, and without him there, you don't need the wand, and it breaks. And it's a nice ceremony that most of the major magical organizations do participate in. But it seems to me that it's also part of a memorial for the magician. It can be done as a 5-minute boom, hey, broken wand, freed, and we done it. Or it can be an opportunity to really remember the magician. And that's what I've always tried to do with the Broken Wand ceremonies. And I know there are a few people that would like to say something about Opie from your own experience. Brooke, you said, come on up.
Yeah. Okay, Opie Houston. All right. I guess I met Opie in 1989 when Fred Donaldson dragged me to my first IBM meeting, or IBM meeting the first time. And, oh man, we became really good friends real quick. Matter of fact, I bought a bunch of components and put together his very first computer, IBM computer. Him and Michael Amar I did the same year. And so anyway, Fred Donaldson sold me a lot of gimmicks, a lot of card gimmicks, a lot of tricks. Opie taught me my first real magic card trick. And I don't know how many of you done it, it's out of this world. He showed me how to do that, and I love it, and I've been doing it ever since. But you know, over the years, it's just been a real good friend over the years, and then he kind of disappeared and became a recluse, and I guess I haven't talked to him in a long time. Way too long.
And for the people that are watching the video, just introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, my name is Brooks Griffith.
Don't be sorry about that, it's a good thing.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Let's see, IBM Willard, IBM Merlin Shield, 35 years TAOM, and 34 years at SAM, because I was a year later joining them. Because, anyway. So, anyway, I've known Opie for many years, and I'll miss him.
Thank you, Brooks. Matt Tilley said,
I'm not sorry, I'm Bertil Fredström. I'm from Sweden. And I moved here 1998. And I came to IBM Ring 60. And I was told that there is another magic club in Austin. But it's run by a very, very strict guy. And IBM Ring 60 is for family, fun and magic. But SAM 206 is only for the real magicians. Professionals. You have to audition to make it there.
Get invited.
So I didn't bother, because I'm a family magician. But I also come from Sweden, where we used to do magic competitions now and then. So I told IBM Ring 60, I said, we have to have a competition. Why don't we do a one-trick competition? And they said, no, we're not about competing. We're all about having fun and being nice to each other. And then one year, I don't remember if it was 3, 4, 5 years later, I was told that SAM 206 are organizing a competition. And then I decided, okay, I have to join SAM 206 as well, and I think I auditioned and I was elected, and I met Opie more as a peer and got to know him. And I, as well as so many other magicians, when we go to magic conventions, we're cheap. We like to share a room. So I've shared a room with Kent at magic conventions. I shared a room with Bob Carroll at magic conventions. I shared a room with Ramon Galindo at magic conventions. And I shared a room with Opie Houston. And when you share a room with someone, you get to know them even closer. And there's some things that I couldn't believe, and I'm not sure if they're true, but apparently he was a famous poet. He has written several books in poetry. He went to Baylor, I believe, which is a Christian college. And he told me that it's thanks to him that they are allowed to dance at Baylor. Because before he took it up with the board, dances were not allowed. And he brought it up to the top, and he took it, I don't know how high you have to go. It's probably somebody, but from then on they're allowed to dance. And he also told me a funny story. When he left the army, he was
Air Force.
Air Force, sorry.
Yeah. It's almost like being in the military.
One of those militaries.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah. He wanted to go into business too, so he didn't buy a sandwich shop. He was buying a motel. So he looked around and he found this motel, and they looked at the books and didn't do very well, so they didn't pay a lot of money for it. And once he bought it, it turned out that the previous owner had been cheating on their taxes. So the turnover was much higher than was on the books. But of course he couldn't charge more than the books showed. So it turned out to be a great deal, and I don't know how long he ran that, but he was very happy with it, and we sold it. So I've known him more and more and closer, and then, as you all say, he kind of disappeared. He had the temper, he got into discussions and arguments with people, and he withdraw instead of in the olden days when he took a fight. But I'm so glad that we did get a chance to make him an honorary lifetime member of this club, because he was one of the people that saved this club 30 years ago. It would have been dead, it would have been eaten by Ring 60, and now we are one of the best clubs in Austin. I miss Opie.
I can see that.
And you do learn a lot of things about people when you share a hotel room. Bet deal.
Have you learned something?
Opie could be mildly cantankerous or out and out impossible to deal with. In the last 10 years or so, I didn't get to see him much. I don't drive anymore because of my vision. You're welcome. And it's harder and harder. And he really was very, very sick, but we would talk on the phone. Sometimes he'd call me, sometimes I'd call him. And we'd talk about the excitement of what was going on in magic, or the excitement of what was going on in politics. And I tended to make those conversations shorter. It's interesting how you get to know people. When it looked like the Society of American Magicians might put their National Magic Center in Austin, everybody in all of the magic clubs was really excited and positive about it, except Opie. He hated the idea. He complained about it at every Magic Club meeting. He wrote emails to probably hundreds of people. Certainly, he wrote emails to me explaining this is a terrible idea and whatever. I happened to be in charge of the committee, and yet Opie and I are friends. And so what I did was I put Opie on the committee. If you have somebody that is extremely negative about something you're trying to do, it's best to know what all the possible troublesome things are. So having somebody that's against it on the committee, we can all outvote him. That's not a problem. But he's going to tell us everything that we might be doing wrong. And I remember inviting him to breakfast at IHOP one time, and we just sat there and I just listened while he told me all the things wrong with having an SAM Magic Center in Austin. And most of his ideas were completely valid. Now, there are ways around the things that are wrong. And we still hoped that we could get that, and things went wrong. And that's a story for another day. Because now we have a Texas Magic Center, and we're beginning to get that started as something locally instead of something run by the national SAM. But even when Opie disagreed, he was smart. And he was not afraid to tell you what he thought. And he also loved collecting magic. He has a room which is hard to get into because floor-to-ceiling magic sets, duplicate magic sets, all kinds of stuff. And the most recent person to see that, except for his poor widow Mary, the most recent person to see that is probably David Frankel. David, tell us what you know. Come up to us.
My name is David Frankel. I moved here in 1980 from Albuquerque. We had an IBM there, but no SAM. I ran a magic shop called Tools Paradise, and that was a lot of fun for a number of years while I was in college. Now for the notes. What can you say about Opie? We all knew Opie in a little different format. The departing live on through the memory of the living, through their poetry, music, art, smiles, and pleasant memories. I used to call Opie Mr. Haiku. Opie and I would go to a number of poetry readings and each read our things. And he could put a haiku together. It would take me weeks, and he'd just be rattling them off. So that was one thing. If we remember Opie, it was for his farmer's magic. He had the corner market on that. We all remember his rubber roaches here, there, and everywhere.
Those were rubber?
Well,
Dang.
for the most part. He would always do that. Everybody loved it. And his Aggie rubber retention bands that he would turn into blinking and into a sparkling bangle to give to a young lady. And if you ever got stuck with Opie in an airport for 5 hours, you would watch him do that several times. Everybody left with a smile. He was truly a consummate professional at what he did. If he liked something, he ran it to the end. We would hit the dollar store and pick up magic card decks and anything else that looked interesting that he could turn into an effect. At one point, he was making chop cups out of everything. He would get roofing shims, and he would be gluing them in there with magnets, and he would make chop cups. So that's that part. I don't know what to say. I spent 2 Thanksgivings with Opie and his family. They were more than gracious. I spent a number of times at conventions sharing a room with Opie. We all know how that was. But he always had something to say. He was always very creative. He was always outstanding. You know, he would always invite me over to sit down and you know, work some tricks out or some routines and moves. But where he came to his focus on magic was different than a lot of people, and that I really appreciated about him. He was a one-of-a-kind individual.
And what kind of stuff might we see at the auction?
Oh, yeah, in the magic room. Most of it, you could go 1 step in, 3 steps to the right, floor to shoulder height, and there are magic sets, not duplicates, but quadruplicates. There are more sets than you've seen, and rubber roaches, and farmer magic, and some pretty interesting other things as well that he accumulated along the way. So I'll be pricing along with a bunch of people this weekend, I hope.
Thank you, David. And for those of you who don't know, the cockroach routine is 2 in the hand, 1 in the pocket. You put 2 of whatever it is in one hand and 1 in the pocket, and then we've got 3 here. But it wasn't little sponge balls, it was rubber cockroaches. And
Big water bugs.
there are people who only saw that trick and considered him a trivial magician. But if you saw him do the coin that dropped up, the coin that fell up, he could do a muscle pass.
Yeah,
With the coin here that just jumps up better than anybody I've known. He was serious about his magic, and he was a guest performer at Magic Camp. And when I was teaching after school programs, there was a period of time when we had a couple dozen schools all throughout the Austin area. I can't do those every week because there's only 2 or 3 of me. So we got other magicians, and Opie was one of the magic teachers that we got for the after school programs. Kids loved him, probably the rubber cockroaches. But he was a good teacher, as well as a very skilled magician, as well as a crazy collector. There's just so many fun things about Opie. Is there anyone else that I've missed that has an Opie story they'd like to share? Now's the chance.
I'm Chris Walden. I regret that I was unable to attend this ceremony live, but I really did want to share something about Opie. He was a poet. He taught poetry, he wrote poetry. His favored form was the haiku, and he was very much into the style and the imagery, the specific form of that. But he wrote all different kinds of poems. He had some books that he had published on poetry, was recognized in various magazines, far outside the realm of magic tricks. I wanted to share a couple of his poems that I found that may surprise you with their way of bringing about this crisp imagery. This first one is called Flood. From my throne, I watch a caravan of ants dismantle an apple on the bathroom floor. No eating of food outside your land, I whisper. But the ants scurry around, unheeding of my law, reveling in their find, exalting that which I have forbidden. You're not supposed to be here, I boom, and douse them with a plant mister. Accumulated drops flood their world, but a few carrying provisions take refuge in an empty wine bottle that lies in clutter in the corner. As I dry the overdue for cleaning tiles, I notice the ants in the bottle, glutting themselves on residual wine which puddles their sanctuary. My task takes less than a minute, only about 30 or 40 seconds, but it must seem longer to them. Oh, how they rejoice drunkenly as I toss them out into strange but dry surroundings. This next one, I remember when he wrote it and submitted it for a publication, and I was deeply moved by the imagery that is just so simply presented here. It's called Veteran. The crowd drowns out the wheelchair's groan as, with left arm, he pushes himself upward onto all but useless legs. Then, as the flag passes, his back straightens and the arm braces smartly against his side, while the memory of the right arm snaps in invisible salute. Wonderful. Wonderful. Opie was very proud of his military service. He was very proud of his language and his teaching and his poetic creations. He was very proud at what he did with magic. He was not always an easy person. He was very exacting in his perspectives and his expectations. But he had a creative soul and truly a caring heart. And I miss him.
Well, you can share it later over a beer. We talked about the broken wand. Magicians have many tools of the trade. There's the top hat, the rabbit, the silks, the cards, the coins, the ropes. All of those things are used by other people with no interest in magic at all. But there's one thing magicians use that's only used by magicians, and that's the magic wand. One of Opie's good friends was Chris Walden, who is working tonight, couldn't be here, but Chris lovingly made this magic wand specifically for Opie's broken wand ceremony. As I said earlier, a magician's peers gather, talk about the magician, but without the magician to wield it, the magic wand is just a stick. It doesn't have any magic anymore. And so, did Opie disappear? No. The few stories you've already heard, the many places his name appears in the magic magazines. As long as people remember Opie Houston, his magic still lives. And so, I just happen to have this little card, and whenever I pick it up, people tend to really applaud. That's for you. They're not laughing. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kent.